yeah, and I see the little red light, and I'm like,
I don't.
yeah. Sit normally, speak normally, breathe normally.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh everyone, I'm Rosie and with my friend Olga.
Hi guys.
And we're going to discuss some of your questions. You have questions about Islam.
Absolutely.
So before we start the video, I'm raising money for Syria.
Mhm.
So guys, please donate. The link's in the comments and the description. Yeah, it's really important because I mean these people were in situations that I can't even imagine, living in tents. Their families have been lost their families to the earthquake. Like no food, no drink, no livelihood, no education. They've lost everything, and we're raising money to help those people, inshallah. So please donate.
Absolutely, and I've already donated, but I'm going to go and donate using your link as well, because yeah, so important and such a powerful cause.
So firstly, thank you so much for like coming and doing this, because
Thank you.
Like you're actually inspiring to me because you're a Cambridge grad, mashallah, and you're such a kind, like just honest soul. Like I don't know, I just think you're amazing.
I feel like you see me the way that I hope to be all the time,
And I think this is so amazing that you're willing to like have this well, actually not just willing, you've got questions that you want to ask me about Islam. And I know you just got back from Turkey as well, so I might be asking you a few questions as well. This is not going to be one way. But it's so nice to hear that you're interested in learning about Islam.
Thank you. No, Islam has a very special place in my heart, and I love and admire all of the amazing Muslim people that are in my life, all of the Muslim people that I've even met in passing. I have a deep respect and fascination with the religion, so it's my absolute pleasure to be here.
So before you ask me your questions about Islam, I want to ask you, how did you find Turkey?
I love Turkey. Turkey was the best place.
Yeah.
I used to go to Turkey a lot as a child with my family, but I'd never been to Istanbul. And so being there with my fiance and with his family, it was a really special experience. And we visited the Hagia Sophia, we visited the Blue Mosque, we visited the Mosque in the Sky, which was Aisha's recommendation. It was the most special experience to be there, and there was an energy, I think especially in the Blue Mosque, there was this peace and this light and this uplifting energy that just touched me to my absolute core, and it was a really beautiful experience, and I loved it, and I'm so excited to go back and do it all again.
As you guys know, I discovered Islam with Blue Mosque, so it's amazing to hear that you say that actually a lot of people convert to Islam after seeing Blue Mosque. Is it still being renovated?
There is still, while we were having this transformational experience, there was like a drill, like a massive drill that was providing a beautiful white noise sort of situation to everything, but there's still a little bit of work happening, but hey, you know, sometimes we all need a little touch up, so it's okay.
Yeah, but the reason why I asked that is because when I went, it was being renovated as well.
Okay.
And I feel like even though all the construction, the renovation, it still really sort of like shows the beauty of Islam, which is really weird thinking about it, because you have like Hagia Sophia, the Mosque in the Sky is so beautiful, but I didn't feel it until I went into Blue Mosque, despite the renovation that was happening.
I really see that. So we went into the Hagia Sophia first, and the Hagia Sophia was it was a church first, right? And I don't know, it felt very different to the other mosques that we visited. You really felt like the age and almost the wisdom of the Hagia Sophia. It was a place that it was like replete with history and with memory, but it was quite daunting. I felt. I don't know. Did you have that experience?
Yeah. So Hagia Sophia was not open when I became Muslim.
Okay.
It was still like a museum, I think maybe.
Yes.
I didn't go into it.
Yes.
And when I went after I became Muslim, I was like, oh, it's beautiful, but I didn't get like the same feeling. Yeah,
very much. But it was a very powerful atmosphere, I think, to be there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Blue Mosque is very special.
Okay, so I see you've got like your questions on your phone.
So many.
Bismillah, let's go for it. Let's go.
So these questions are on my phone because I had so many and I couldn't remember them all. So please forgive the phone.
We might have to do 2 parts. That's fine though.
That's so fine. We'll do as many parts.
There's like a 10-part series about to happen right now.
I will take anything to see Khadija and to play with Khadija. So 10 parts it is. So my first question is that you came to Turkey as a tourist. While you were there, what was it that really drew you to the Blue Mosque or to visit mosques in general?
That's a good question, and you know what, I wish I had like this amazing like spiritual answer, but the reason why I went to Blue Mosque that day was because I was bored. Like that is, I mean, honestly, like I'm not gonna lie and be like I was searching for something. I wasn't. I was literally sitting in my hostel. I was like, what do I do today? Googled like tourist attractions in Istanbul and Blue Mosque came up, and I was like, okay, I'll go and visit this mosque thingy, whatever it is. I didn't really like know. And yeah, obviously when I went in for the first time I was very shocked. It wasn't what I was expecting. I wasn't looking for a religious or spiritual experience. I was looking for touristy things. So probably Hagia Sophia would have been better for me if it was open. I went into Blue Mosque and I was just so shocked by the peace, like you said, and sort of the uplifting. See, I didn't feel, you said uplifting, I thought it was really interesting. I didn't really feel the uplifting. I felt more like I felt more grounded.
Interesting.
Because when you think of uplifting, you think of like a rise.
Yeah.
I felt more like to the ground. Because I remember sitting down by one of the posts and just sitting there thinking like, feeling really sort of connected to the ground I was on and feeling connected to the world around me and just thinking like, wow, this is incredible. And I was doing dhikr. I don't know if you know what dhikr is.
No, tell me please.
So it's I think I have some of these beads. So this is actually the one that I used. Oh my god, this is the same one. So it's dhikr is an Arabic word. It translates to like remembering, remembrance. So we use these to remember God. So we'll say things like Alhamdulillah, like thanks to God. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. And you like move the beads along like this. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. It's done as like a spiritual practice. And I did it because I happened to have one in my pocket at the time. I bought one for like 50p or something. Thinking they were stress beads. And I had anxiety, so I was like, okay, well, I have anxiety, so I'm just gonna like use them. Have you seen people in Turkey using them?
Yes,
there's loads.
I have. I found many of these beads around.
Yes. So I thought it was stress. I thought people just did it like when they were stressed. They just did this. So when I was sitting in the mosque, I saw people doing it, and I thought, oh, maybe it's a religious thing. So I googled like beads Islam or something like that, and it came up what you're supposed to say. So I literally read from my phone. I was like, okay, it says Alhamdulillah. So I was like, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, like trying to repeat it. And I did it for like ages, just sitting in the mosque. And I had my eyes closed and I was like, looking at my phone. Oh yeah. And
the drill going off behind you as well. Beautiful accompaniment.
Actually, I was wrong. I did feel an uplifting. In that moment, I did feel an uplifting. But I remember going in and feeling grounded. But when I started doing this, I felt like I was connected to like a higher power upwards. So I did get more of an uplifting feeling actually. I'm gonna put these back. Yeah, that's like a really long answer to your question because your question was just like, where did I go?
No, I really, really love it. And I would say to anyone watching this that hasn't been to a mosque, go, really, really go. They're such beautiful, beautiful places. Something I didn't really expect. And this was I think it was the first time in Istanbul when I had walked into a mosque. And what I didn't expect, I knew they were immensely beautiful places. What I didn't expect is that mosques are also such major community centers. Like you walk in and there are children everywhere and they're playing and then play fighting and there was a little boy that was doing press ups. His dad was counting them.
So cute. Oh
it was so adorable and I really saw actually how these were not only places of worship, spiritual places, but also places where people go with their families and to create these beautiful kind of memories and communities, and that was really powerful. And I really, really urge just go and see because it feels very, very special.
Have you seen people praying before?
Yes, so we prayed actually.
Oh yes, you said, you told me.
Yes, we prayed with my fiance, and it was really, really beautiful. It's actually something I want to keep doing. I told him. Now we're back here, we need to go and keep
What
doing
did you do? Did you do like a sort of Christian prayer, or did you like put your head on the floor?
No, the full head on the floor, everything. And we did it twice around, and there was something very powerful. I've been at churches a lot. I've prayed in the kind of Christian way, and I actually felt there was something very powerful about kind of going to the ground and that form of supplication. It was very, very powerful, and to do it with someone I really, really love, to have that experience together, it was really special, and it's something I definitely will keep doing.
How did you feel like? I don't know. Have you ever done this before, of head on the floor?
No.
How did it feel?
Okay, this is like not to do with that, but I'm a massive germaphobe.
Oh no.
There was that at first I was a little worried, purely from my from my germophobia, but I loved it. I loved it. That I can't really express in words why. If it was doing that, if it was having that experience together, or if it was the humility and the focus, and I think the kind of feeling of being human, and feeling that there is something greater than you, and kind of that recognition that there was something very powerful about it, and I loved it, and it helped me overcome my germophobia.
You came out better.
I came out a better woman.
You know, putting my head on the ground, that like one sort of, that moment that lasts maybe a couple of seconds, however long it lasts, it's so powerful. I feel like I'm just sort of, I'm not in this world anymore. That's the way I feel sometimes. Not all the time. Sometimes I'm like, my brain is elsewhere and I'm thinking about other things. But if I'm like fully focused in what I'm doing, and I put my head on the floor, it's kind of like, I just feel like I'm not existing in this space anymore, that I'm existing in like in another space, and it's so amazing, and it helps me put things into perspective. Because if you look at life from this like lens close up, everything can be a problem. But if you like zoom out that lens and start seeing the bigger picture and the world beyond that tiny little lens, then anything just becomes so much easier, I think. And that's what I feel like when I put my head on the ground, like I've kind of been transported out of this tiny little lens into the world view, and I'm like, oh, actually, like everything's okay. Like, I don't know. I love that way of seeing that experience, and of taking that away from that experience. I think if I were to pray a few more times, I definitely see how I would experience something very, very similar. I think in the moment it was just, it was, I guess, a suspension. I felt like everything outside kind of stopped existing for a moment. All of the worries, or anything else that was happening, just kind of paused, and you were just there. And it's such a powerful sensation, because I guess praying within Islam, it requires your whole body, right? It's not just one kind of gesture, and that level of, I guess, that level of focus, and putting all of yourself into a prayer is what leads to a feeling like that, which is really, really cool. I love how we're still on like the first question. Oh yeah, we're still on the first question. Okay. I'd love for you to tell us like a little bit more. So you went into the Blue Mosque, and you had this transformational, like, powerful experience. What did you do when you came out? What did you do when you arrived back to the UK? So when I arrived back to the UK, I wasn't expecting to kind of take that with me. I thought it was something that I was going to leave in Turkey. So when I was in Turkey, I carried on that kind of inquisitive nature of looking into the religion, looking into mosques. I started reading the Quran a little bit while I was in Turkey, and I thought when I come back to the UK I was going to kind of leave it there and resume my life. I was working in the film industry at the time, and I had a couple of jobs lined up when I came back, but it was COVID. So COVID shut down everything. So what I thought would happen is I'd finish my little experiment in Turkey, I'd leave it, come back to UK, resume my life, done. I came back to the UK, COVID hit, stuck indoors, I was like, okay, well, let's carry on researching about this religion just out of curiosity, not out of wanting to convert or be another religion. I had no intention to change my life so drastically. But I just kept researching and I just kept watching lectures. I really, my heart was very much inclined to watching these lectures. I loved watching people talk about God, talk about Islam. It made me feel just, I don't know, more complete. And I traded my sort of YouTube binges of, I don't know, random like vlogs or whatever to like Islamic lectures. And it just sort of, it made me happier, and it made me feel, especially during COVID, which was such a difficult time for everyone, it made me feel more like there was more purpose. I felt more connected to the world throughout the hardship that was going on, and it just became my guiding light, and I just never stopped.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful, and I'm really, really happy for you that you found this kind of North Star, and that it helps you. I think it's really, I'm on the journey of trying to find something like this for myself, but I'm very, very happy for you that you found that. And at what point in this journey did you decide that you wanted to start wearing the hijab? How did you come into the hijab? Was it a kind of a process that was spread out over a period of time, or was there just one day where you woke up and you decided, actually, like, this is where I want to take my faith, this is what I really want to do?
It was a process. I actually started wearing it in Turkey because I wore it the first time I went into a mosque. And then as an experiment, I was an actress, you have to remember, so like I was very much into like embodying different characters. So I embodied like the hijabi. So I just tried wearing it while I was in Turkey, and I came back to UK and I didn't want to wear it here because obviously people don't wear hijab really here. And I was like, I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb if I wear it here. So I didn't wear it here for a while. But when I actually properly became Muslim was during Ramadan, which is another topic which I know you're going to ask me about, because I know what happened the time you tried Ramadan, so I'm excited to talk about that.
It's awful.
So yeah, I became Muslim during Ramadan. Ramadan was the last step for me, because I thought, if I can't do Ramadan, how can I, like, in my head, you don't have to be able to, but in my head I was like, if I can't do Ramadan, how can I be a Muslim? Because it's such a big part of our religion. So I was like, I have to really like give this a go, and I was really nervous to do it. Actually, I'm not going to talk about Ramadan too much because I want you to ask your question. But anyway, I became Muslim in Ramadan. I put the hijab on, I think I put the hijab on before Ramadan started, because I wanted to try Ramadan as like a full sort of Muslim experience month. So I wanted to have like the Muslim experience of what it's like for a Muslim woman during Ramadan. So covering up, focusing my time on things like reading Quran or watching lectures, and trying to remove things that are toxic from my life, like gossiping, backbiting, arguments, just having like a full cleanse. So it was like a proper cleanse for me, and a part of that cleanse was covering up, because I was very obsessed with like looking good, so I wanted to try and remove that part of myself in order to go more inwards and search for other parts of myself. So yeah, and hijab helped me do that. It helped me sort of forget about something that I was so self-absorbed with for a long time. And I didn't stop wearing it after Ramadan. I kept wearing it. Maybe a few times I didn't, because maybe I was going to like a family thing or something. I didn't put it on. But now, I wear it all the time. I'm out in public, obviously. But when I first started, I was a bit picky. I would wear it walking the streets. I live in a Muslim area, so it's like you fit it and it's not an issue. If I went to like a family gathering, maybe I wouldn't put it on. And it was like that for a while. I don't remember the time when I fully committed to it, but it would have been maybe a couple of months after. Yeah, that's my path. Everyone's like hijab journey is so different.
Of course. Thank you for sharing your journey with us. Did you feel, once you started wearing the hijab all the time, did you feel that the way people treated you, the way that people responded to you changed? enjoy that? Were there moments that were difficult? What was your kind of experience as it comes to kind of other people?
So I have a very mixed experience. I've had people say things to me like, I was going to say something. So one time I was electric scootering along the street, and I'm a bit of a Dumbo sometimes. It's not because like I'm from another country or something. I'm a bit of a Dumbo. And this guy was cycling towards me, and I didn't know like which side I was supposed to go on.
Yeah.
And he shouted at me, and he was like, learn the rules of England, darling, or something like that. And I was like, I'm English. I was like, in this little voice. I don't think I said anything. But after he left, I was like, I'm English. But there's that kind of judgment that you're like not from here. Or people sometimes, they slow their English down for me.
Do you respond in an equally slowed down way? Like, how do you respond? Do you like, yes, I get that? Or like, what do you, what's
I'm like,
your
thank you,
Thank
I
you.
understand now.
Thank you.
I don't know. I always feel a bit, like my initial reaction is, that's rude. But then my other reaction is actually like, no, they could genuinely be coming from a good place of like thinking, maybe she's not from here, maybe if I slow my English down it'll help her understand and feel included. So it's not necessarily like a bad thing. But yeah, initially you could be like, I'm English. But it's just ego.
Yeah, that's true. Did you have any experiences that actually made you question like Englishness in general, right? In the sense of, for example, you would, in this experience, you had someone who was English that said that to you. Did at some point you start to kind of question Englishness as a culture, or as an inclusive space, or as something that represented you, or was that never a consideration?
It's a really interesting question. You know, like I'm not very sort of nationalistic. Like it's not a huge part of my identity. I'm not strong on like, oh, I'm British.
Yeah.
I don't even really know what British values are. Like if somebody said to me what are British values, I'd be like holding the door open for someone. Like I don't know.
That's a strong one. That's a major. If there was a rule book somewhere, that would be number 1 for sure.
Road rage.
Road rage. True. Road rage.
I don't feel like it takes away from my Englishness per se. But there are certain things, I guess, that are promoted in the society that I don't adhere to. So I don't adhere to, like, I don't drink, obviously. Yeah. Which is something I know that you're, like, interested in.
The drinking and the major kind of lifestyle changes, did they happen before or after you started wearing the hijab?
Before.
Hijab
was like a final piece.
The hijab was the final piece. And before, did you feel like you would get a lot of questions that were kind of probing you, like, why are you not drinking? I think people immediately assuming that I don't know, that somebody perhaps like struggled with alcohol or with, you know, substances, and that was the reason. Did you ever struggle with those sorts of questions?
Not really, because I mean, my blanket answer is just like I try to do things that benefit me.
Yeah.
So I never really drank that much anyway, and if somebody said to me like, why are you not drinking, I'm like, oh, I'm only trying to do things that benefit me. And everyone knows alcohol's not beneficial. No one's going to argue with you and go, actually you're missing like a really valuable thing that's going to give you like a really good mind and a good future. Like no one's going to say that to you. They're just going to say to you, oh, you're missing out on a fun time.
Yeah. Which
is like, it's minor in the bigger picture. It was never really an issue for me, but I know for you, since you've like been dry, that it's been difficult.
I wouldn't say that entire kind of experience has been difficult, but there are definitely difficult conversations that have happened, or I've noticed that people really take it, some people really take it personally, which I didn't expect to happen, and that's quite interesting for me to think about from a like what's happening in their heads. So I think when I've gone somewhere and I've been with friends and they've said, oh hey, like, do you want to grab a drink? And I've said, no, thank you, like I'm good, but you go ahead, you do you. There's always been like a kind of a pause and like, you're not drinking, why why is that?
Yeah.
What, you know, what's the reason? And I think sometimes it can come from a genuine place of curiosity. Sometimes it can come from a place of concern, which I think is totally fine, and that's a good place for questions to come from. But sometimes it can really come from a place of judgment, and I think sometimes, especially, so my my fiance is Muslim, and the people in my life that know about this sometimes connect those two things in maybe like not the best ways and not the ways that feel best for me, and they ask, oh, is he making you do this, or and that's when I find that it's a little bit difficult, because I always want to kind of jump to the defense, but I kind of have to slow myself down and think, okay, this is, you know, it's still not coming from a bad place, it's still a place of kind of questioning and wanting to connect the dots. But actually, on the topic of, you know, people asking questions that come from a place of curiosity versus a place of judgment, have you received those sorts of questions a lot at any point throughout your journey, like to this day? And if so, how do you respond to questions that come from a place of judgment as opposed to curiosity about your faith, or about any of the decisions, or anything at all?
I think I try not to like sort of like judge someone's intentions. Obviously, like naturally, like your brain starts saying like, oh, they're trying to trick you, or they're genuinely interested. But I try to kind of like dismiss those thoughts, because at the end of the day, like, you can't really know what's in someone's heart. Somebody can come across quite cold, but really they're like, they have a genuine inclination towards the religion. So I just sort of try not to judge, and if someone's like trying to catch me out or whatever, then I mean, that's their problem, not mine. I just try and be honest and authentic. There probably have been moments where it's happened, but I just answer as I would anyone else. If someone asked me a question, I would just answer the question. I mean, there's no like special sort of answer to that. When you were speaking about alcohol, though, I thought it was so interesting, because alcohol is not known as something positive, and it's interesting that we kind of peer pressure each other into these behaviours, especially when it's not known to be good. And I think something that I've done when I became Muslim is I've become very childlike again, in the sense that things that you protect your children from, I try and protect myself from. So you wouldn't give beer to a child because they're innocent, you don't want to corrupt them. So why would you promote that to your friend or to your family, you know? So I try and protect myself the way you protect a child. Like, obviously I don't drink, I try not to watch like sexual things, I try not to watch dangerous, violent things. I try and, the same way I would protect Khadija from the world, I try and protect myself, because I'm important as well. And I deserve, like, my mind, I don't want to corrupt my mind with these negative things, the same way I don't want to corrupt Khadija's mind with these negative things. And that kind of like naive, childlike place is actually a beautiful place to be. And alcohol doesn't come into that. And substance abuse doesn't come into that. So my reasoning behind it, I feel like, is very strong. And if somebody then takes that step forward and then says to me like, you know, like, you're missing out, or you know, that kind of FOMO, that fear of missing out, like people try and create. Second time I've said it now. that FOMO. I don't think that comes from a good place. When it comes to things that are bad for us, and everyone knows it's bad for you. And if there are people like in your life that are like particularly like being like pressurizing you in that way, maybe it's worth just having a conversation of like what is it about this thing, this drink, that you think is going to bring so much benefit to my life?
What do you think it is about, should we say, I don't know, Western culture seems like a very big, you know, very kind of loaded term, but let's maybe talk about, say, English society, be much more specific about it. What do you think it is about English society that makes people lean so heavily towards alcohol, and that normalizes alcohol in the way that it does?
That's really interesting. You know, there are a couple of things that I realised about English society that are actually quite negative when I became Muslim, because Islam comes to protect different aspects of our life. So Islam comes to protect family by saying, you know, don't cheat, don't commit zina, so like don't go out and just have sex with random people. You know, it comes to protect family, like only get divorced if you have to, kind of thing. it comes to protect our wealth. It says don't engage in riba. So riba is like interest.
Yeah.
So, you know, people who are in debt, don't make them more in debt by making them pay interest. Don't gamble.
Student Finance England.
Exactly.
This is a message for you.
Don't gamble.
Yeah.
You know, protecting wealth. Protecting our mind. Islam teaches us education is important.
Yes.
It teaches us not to do alcohol because alcohol distorts the mind. That's the reasoning behind not having alcohol.
Mm.
So we have a thing called the illah. So the illah behind a ruling. So like the reasoning behind a ruling. For this particular ruling is it corrupts the mind. That's why we're not supposed to drink alcohol. So it comes and says protect your mind. Don't drink, don't do drugs, have an education.
Mm.
And then it also comes to protect life. It says don't kill yourself, don't harm yourself.
Mm.
And a lot of English values are actually the opposite to that.
Okay.
Like we're very much at the moment into Tinder, like going around sleeping with whoever you want kind of behaviour, not protecting family. Divorce is high right now. We don't protect wealth, full of interest everywhere. Like anything you buy, there's like interest just surrounded. Gambling is promoted, like alcohol is promoted again with the mind. And I mean at the moment self-harm is on the rise.
Yeah.
So you mean look at all these values that are in English society are completely like not there at all at the moment in society. And I think the main reason why is because it favours the rich. Like especially when it comes to interest, it favours the rich. Imagine what society we would live in if there wasn't any cheating, if there wasn't any gambling, if there wasn't any alcohol, if there wasn't any interest, if there was
Sounds like heaven to me.
Exactly. And English society is just the complete opposite of that right now. I mean, and that's what's interesting for people like me and people like you, is like actually there are some values there that are really important and intrinsically valuable to everyone, like even children, you know, our sort of fitra, our natural state is to value these things, but we live in a society that doesn't, and it's really difficult, and that's why Islam helps a lot of people, I think.
Mm-hmm. So I guess just before you said actually it's something that benefits the rich, I was going to ask you if you thought it was a method of control.
Yeah.
Right, like keeping a population, I guess like feeding into all of the impulses that all of us have, and keeping kind of people occupied within the realms of those impulses, and not perhaps in a position to really be questioning, really be critical of the world that they're in. How kind of follow-up question to that? A lot of Muslim societies are very heavily authoritarian. So you see, here, completely granted, you see this is a kind of democratic, I guess, more like atheistic leaning state that is free, and I guess we can really discuss like what that freedom means. Islam is there to, I guess, free people, but you see in these like Muslim states where again like this authoritarianism, and perhaps we spoke about this a little bit as well previously, but about women's rights and the way that they're curtailed in some places. How does that play out? Is it a question of kind of religion versus culture? Is there something else to it? What do you think creates that
really
distinction there?
I don't know why it's there. I remember earlier I gave you a reason why I think it could be there.
Yes.
But why it's there, personally, I don't know. As I read the Sirah a lot, so the history of the Prophet, peace be upon him, like his life sort of biography, history type thing. And when he eventually became a leader, other leaders of other tribes were like, how could this man be a leader? He would speak to his people, he'd ask for their advice, and he would literally be laughed at by other tribe leaders. Like, they would be like, how can this guy be a leader? We're asking him to come up with something and he's asking for advice. Like, he wants to know what people think. Everyone around him thought they were his best friend. Imagine what kind of character you must have if everyone is going, I'm his best friend. No, I'm his best friend. Like, it's like, he made everyone feel so special. Wow. And that was what he was like as a leader. That he included everybody, the poor, the slaves were elevated in society. the wealthy people who were bad to slaves, he would tell them off. He'd be like, you're not from this religion if you're going to behave in such a way. So he was a fantastic leader. He was inclusive. Everyone felt like they could trust him. Everyone loved him. Everyone loved being around him. They thought he was their best friend. That kind of leader, obviously, we don't see today. Why? I don't know.
Maybe we have one right here. Who knows?
Khadija?
Oh, maybe Khadija, maybe yourself.
Yeah, Khadija's got it in her, definitely.
Or Khadija is going to be our, Prime Minister in 20 years' time. I can feel it. She's so awesome.
But I feel like with modern leaders of every country, obviously this is not just a Muslim issue, because there are lots of countries that have like dictatorship sort of rulers, and lots of issues who are non-Muslim or even have no religion or Christianity or whatever. It's not just an Islamic issue. There's a lot of countries that face this problem, and a lot of it is down to just sort of us as a people. We're very materialistic. We don't want someone leading us who's come from poverty, or that rides a bike instead of a Ferrari, or that just lives a humble lifestyle. That's not what we seek. So I think we're the problem when it comes to these like kind of horrible leaders, because we're the ones that want the these countries that like everyone's living on $1 a day, but their leaders are like richer than Donald Trump. Like we as a society, we put those people in power, and it's just our corruption, like our corrupt minds of just wanting this, like, I don't even know how to describe it, but you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that, and I guess that kind of takes us back to this like age-old idea that really change has to come from within you, and change has to start within your own life. You want to see something ripple up, you have to start with yourself and with the people close to you, and with the tiny actions in your day-to-day that maybe you think aren't meaningful but that mean absolutely everything. I see that. I think that's a really beautiful answer. I wanted to ask you a little bit about motherhood and Islam. Obviously you have beautiful, I call her little Princess Khadija, because that's what she is.
That's true.
She is. How does Islam play into motherhood for you? If you were to imagine yourself as a non-Muslim with Khadija versus as a Muslim with Khadija, what is it that the religion gives you or is able to make you do differently? I feel like that question made no sense, but it made sense in my head.
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about it, but motherhood is the hardest thing I've ever done. 100%. No one can prepare you for the challenges. I don't know how I would have done it without what we call in Islam as tawakkul, which is like having faith in God that everything happens for a reason. And we compare it to things like, imagine you're giving your child a vaccine. That child is going to cry and scream, but ultimately the vaccine is good for it. That's what bad scenarios can be like sometimes. Like you feel like you're going through something horrible, you want to scream and shout, and you're allowed to scream and shout, but it's like, you know that eventually what's happening is good to you because it's happening from a creator that loves you and wants the best for you. And having that faith is called tawakkul. So having tawakkul in those hard moments is invaluable. When you're going through something really difficult, and there have been lots of those moments, just knowing that the grass is greener, that there's two sides, but there's the hope of the future, but then there's also knowing that what you're going through is good for you. And it can be really hard, especially when you're going through something hard, to be like, oh, this is good for me, but it's having that trust. It's not seeking negativity in your life, but when it comes to you being able to power through and trusting that what is happening is for the best. And that is invaluable in hard times. I don't know how I would get through those hard times without that thought process.
Yeah, I see that for sure. And on a kind of slightly different note, can you tell us how you picked out Khadijah's name because I love this so much, and I know a lot of your Muslim viewers are probably going to connect the dots immediately. But
Yeah.
for those that might not know, I think it's a really beautiful story. So would you like to tell it?
Well, I mean, as everyone knows, Khadija, the wife of the Prophet, radiallahu anha, meaning like, may Allah be pleased with her. I mean, I just admire her character so much. She was such what we would call in modern day society as a boss woman.
She's a boss lady.
She's a boss lady.
She's a boss lady for sure.
She had, I mean, impeccable character. And I was telling you about the time that the Prophet upon him, he saw revelation inside the cave, and he come running back to Khadija, and he was saying to her, he thought he'd gone crazy, and he was like, have I gone crazy? Has the devil come to me? What's going on? She said to him, like, God loves you. He wouldn't put you through something like this, and gave him peace so beautiful. And I admired her character so much, and I saw, even when Khadija came out into the world, my Khadija, I was like, she's a Khadija. She's a Khadija.
I see that. She's so willful, and she's so determined, and she just has this, you know, I met her for the first time today, and honestly, and I told you this, like, immediately as I walked in, I felt like this tiny little, like, gorgeous little baby, but you feel like she has this, like, strength and determination and just absolute willfulness in her, and I see that she is going to be a force to be reckoned with, for sure. I'm going to go with this one. You spoke a lot about how before reverting to Islam, you did have a kind of conception of God and of faith and spirituality. How has your feeling or experience of God changed after you reverted?
Okay, so before I became Muslim, I didn't believe in God per se. I went through difficult times in my life where I called upon something, not knowing what I was calling upon, but you just kind of do. And I never really understood God. I never tried to understand God or creator or whatever word you want to use. And I never turned to God in my good moments. I only turned to God in my, like, deep hard moments. When I became Muslim, obviously that completely changed, because I turned to God in, like, every single moment. And I was never Christian, but coming from a Christian country, in Christianity, you tend to only, like, turn to God in your, like, extreme moments, especially because that connection in Christianity is a little bit more difficult, because you have to connect to God through, like, some kind of priest or something, you know, like, it's not like you just kind of call upon God. You have to, like, go to a priest, and then the priest, like, asks for forgiveness for you, and it's obviously in Islam we have that direct connection, so like every person has that direct connection. And now I call on God, like, literally in every single moment. Like, even before I started this video, I was like, God, please make this video, like, a benefit to people, which in my head is quite difficult to do, because I feel like I only get, like, a certain amount of wishes, and I'm using my wishes up on silly little things. That's how I viewed it when I first became Muslim. But as a Muslim, you are supposed to turn to God in, like, every single moment. There's nothing too big, nothing too small. And it's really difficult to get out of that mindset of, like, oh my God, you're using up your wishes, to actually being like, I can say to God, like, I'm getting in the car, give me a safe journey, please. Like, that's okay. Like, it's completely okay to do that. You're not using up your wishes. So when I became Muslim, we have the 99 names of Allah. So I don't know if you're, like, aware of any of them, but they're all, like, super comforting names, like Ar-Rahman, meaning, like, the most merciful, and that's really amazing for me, because since I became Muslim now, I view God as this, as a being that protects, loves, nourishes, takes care of his creation, and somebody who didn't have a father growing up. That's incredible to think of a being out there that's looking out for me, that created me, that wants the best for me. And that kind of fatherly type, parental type love of a mother who's more comforting, but of a father who's more protective, like, all in one, kind of looking over every single moment, is it's wonderful. I mean, it's like being embraced by the love a creator of what created you. Yeah, it's just so beautiful. And I know you had a surreal experience before, which I'm not sure if you're up for talking about.
No, for sure, I can share it. So, I was born an Orthodox Christian, but I was never, fully kind of practicing any religion, and yet there have been moments in my life where I felt a proximity to something that at the time I can only just explain as just feeling greater than me, bigger than me. One of those times I was quite young. I must have been about, I don't know, maybe 12, somewhere like 12 to 14 years old, and I was with my dad and in a taxi with my dad. So it was my dad, myself, and a taxi driver in Finland, super random. And in Eastern Europe, for those of you who've ever been, it's just a thing. We don't have seatbelts in the back of the cars, just to add a little bit of spice to life, I guess. And so I was sat, obviously unseatbelted, but also very like in between those two front seats. And I was kind of like hunched over them and speaking to my dad or doing something else. And the car was moving, and I didn't see anything. There was no kind of visual signals, no anything, but there was a voice in my head that I can still hear to this day that was like, sit back. That was it. And I heard it, and it was very clear. And I sat back, and within a few seconds, there was a truck that crashed into the car, and the car turned, and we were, thank God, like everyone was safe and everything was okay. But had it not been for that voice, like I probably would have like gone through the front window, and I don't know what would have happened, but it would have been very bad. And I've had a few moments like this, like throughout my life, and oh my god, speaking about it just makes my head.
Yeah, I can see.
But I have heard like that voice, and I'm very skeptical. I'm a very analytical person. I always think like, could it have been something else? Could I have, I don't know, maybe in the corner of my eye, could I have seen a truck, or could I have seen, I don't know, the behavior of the cars around me have like changed or something to give me that signal? And I remember that moment very, very well. And actually a few of the moments that, that followed where I heard this voice again, and there was nothing that I can think of and that I was conscious of that would have alerted me to this happening. It was just this voice, and it was so instantaneous, and I was so young too that I wouldn't have been able to verbalize these things to myself. And for me, that is what God is, and I feel him, or I feel a being like very firmly within like my gut now. Like it's my gut instinct. I still occasionally have this voice that just speaks to me, and I think that is what God means to me. But I'm on a journey. So yeah.
That's so beautiful, honestly. Thank you. Well, you asked me. I know you have more questions.
Oh, so many
but
questions.
As you guys know, I'm a new mum, and Khadija always needs. But we should definitely do another episode, inshallah,
Yes,
if you have more questions.
Yes, please.
But yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for watching. And it's such a pleasure. I just want to say to you, you really are just you're like a sunshine. You're so wonderful, and I'm so grateful that you took the time. I just want to thank you for that. Thank you for asking me those questions. Thank you for getting me to think, and I find you immensely inspirational, and you're just awesome.
Thank you. That's so sweet. I don't know what to say now. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. Assalamu alaikum.